Hey everyone, I'm going to talk about the Garmin GPSMAP 66i, which is the handheld, outdoor built, portable navigation GPS with InReach, so InReach satellite technology built into it. A lot of what I'm going to talk about also applies to the 66ST, which is the one just with the topo maps, and the 66S, which doesn't have any maps but is a navigation device and also no InReach. Now, I've been using this for months, and I only do videos and reviews for gear that I actually use and recommend. At first, I didn't recommend this. I was very disappointed by this device, mainly because it was buggy. The software was glitchy, there were problems, it would restart. Good news is that over time, it's gotten better. Garmin has addressed a lot of the problems with their firmware updates, and it is better than it was. It's still not perfect. There still are problems, and I will go over that in a little bit. But if you want a rugged, purpose-built handheld GPS for the outdoors, this is the top of the line. This is probably your best bet. So before we get into it, a couple things. I'm going to run through the highs and lows of this device and show you some of the features and how it works and why it's good, why it's bad. I'm also going to show you how to navigate. So everything from planning a hike to loading on a device to navigating in the field with this, or not planning a hike and navigating with this. I'm not going to compare this to the InReach Explorer or the Mini. I have a pretty in-depth comparison on the corresponding article on HikingGuy.com. So if you go to the website, if you're thinking about an InReach Explorer maybe, go to the website. I'll compare those. I'll compare this to all those models because this might not be the model for you. It is pricey. There might be a better option. So go to HikingGuy.com for that. Also, the setup steps I have on HikingGuy.com. I'm not going to go through it here because it's a bit tedious, but I have a step-by-step guide on how to get this up and running as quickly as possible with the least hassle as possible. One other note, I do not get paid by Garmin or anyone to do these reviews. This is based on me using this for several months, thinking it's going to be valuable for me, hundreds of miles. So I'll only recommend things that I think are good products, and that's why I'm recommending this. I'm not getting sponsored by Garmin or paid by Garmin or any of those things. So let's get into it. Okay, let's go through the lows first, get that out of the way. First problem I alluded to earlier, it's the software. The software is or has been buggy. So when it first came out, a lot of people had crashes, there were a lot of problems, people returned it. I think some of them, a small amount, might be hardware problems, but the majority of them are probably software problems. Now, Garmin has updated the firmware several times since it came out, and I'm a long-time Garmin user. Garmin's really good about updating firmware and features on these devices, and a lot of times, not necessarily with this so far, but with other devices, they add in features that weren't even there when the device first came out. So I'd expect more features to be coming on this, but again, the firmware is slightly buggy. Maybe every 50 miles or so, if I hit two buttons quickly or do something a little weird, it might lock up and I have to do a hard reset, which is just holding this button in for about 30 seconds and it'll restart itself. But the firmware is not quite there yet. It's probably at about 95%. But again, it's going to get better over time. So if you buy this, just expect it to get better. Famous last words, but that's based on experience. The second big low on the 66i is the price. It is expensive. There are ways to get a discount. If you get an REI membership, you get roughly 10% of that back. But there are cheaper handheld navigation devices out there. Like I said earlier, if you go to the website, I will compare this to those cheaper options, and maybe one of those less expensive ones is right for you. It is a bit of an investment to drop roughly $600 on one of these guys. So I'm going to put that as a low. The other low on the GPSMAP 66i is the interface. I read some review and somebody was like, felt like they were transported to 2005. The interface feels old and clunky. It's got a flip phony kind of feel to it, and it could be better. Now, having said that, when you're tired, when you can't see well, when you're in the field and conditions are not ideal, the interface of this is good. It's so simple. The icons are big. I've had partial snow blindness and sun blindness, and it's been easy to see and deal with. So it's sort of a double-edged sword, but the interface does feel dated. It could be better. Um, the the way it's laid out and the way they track activities, tracks GPS points, it's a little clunky. It could be slicker. It's not as slick as a phone. And if you want to get a phone app, you can certainly do that too. There's great apps like Gaia GPS where you can pinch and zoom, you can turn layers on and off, you can have offline maps. Those are definitely options, but those apps on a phone are not on a device that's built for the outdoors. This is built to be outside. So interface will give a low, with a caveat that in certain situations it's actually okay not to have super detailed icons and graphics on there so that you can really see it and just see what's going on. The other low with the 66i is the workflow for it. Now, in order to use this, you have to log on to the website, set up an account, sync that account with a new app called Garmin Explore for your smartphone, and then sync it to here. So it's a little clunky. And the Garmin Explore website is not the best in the world. I'll show you some alternatives to it later. But the whole ecosystem seems like it's patched together, and it probably is. These are an evolution of the DeLorme units, the InReach from them. So it feels like everything's kind of patched together. It also doesn't work with the EarthMate app. It only works with the Explore app. So if you have an other InReach, older InReach, it's not going to work with EarthMate, but you can import that data to this, which is good. But overall, I think the whole setup could definitely be easier to kind of wrap your head around how to update the firmware, how to transfer things back and forth. And if you want to actually do those things, just read the article on the website. I have the whole setup and the transferring information and how you do that in there. But it doesn't get high marks for that. It's not the easiest to figure out the whole ecosystem. Another low is the bird's eye imagery. Now, bird's eye is a satellite image set that Garmin has, and they actually sell it. If you get the 66i, it comes with a free subscription, which means you have access to it, but you can actually buy it for other units as well. It's essentially satellite photos that you load onto the 66i. Positive on that is they overlay the information on top of the satellite, so you'll see the contours and you'll see any marks or waypoints on there. Bad point is that it's not very detailed. You can see if you look at Google Maps satellite photos, they're really, really nice. You can zoom in deep, or if you use topo or something else, you have really good quality. But if you look at something the same view on the bird's eye map, it's not so great. And I've heard from people that the images are dated, over 10 years old. So I found that to be a pretty worthless feature. It's nice to have if you really need some kind of a top-down view and you don't have to worry about tree cover where you need it. I guess it could come in handy, file under nice to have. But overall, the bird's eye imagery has been pretty disappointing.
So I downloaded some of the bird's eye imagery onto the unit, and I'm looking at it in Basecamp because it's easier to look. So here you can see, let me zoom in. Here you can see what it looks like, and we can really zoom. Not the greatest, not the worst, but let's take a look at Google Maps and see what we can see for the same view. And here's the same area on a satellite photo of Google Maps. You can see the level of detail is much better. That's about as far in as I could go, but the bird's eye imagery is okay. It's not as good as Google. You also can't load Google Maps, these types of satellite maps, onto your 66i, so maybe it's not a fair comparison. But just to give you some reference, I think Google Maps is probably a pretty standard paradigm for satellite photos. And there's other tools you can use, topo as satellite photos, Gaia GPS as satellite photos, but that's the comparison.
Now, downloading bird's eye imagery is a little clunky. You have to be connected to Wi-Fi on the unit. You can see I have the little Wi-Fi symbol up there. And then you click download. Now you have to pick a location, so one point that you want the imagery for. You can't say, give me the imagery for the entire route that I've planned. It's only a point, and we'll just pick a waypoint. It's going to say, do you want to do it there?
Okay, now you can pick a radius. So obviously a bigger radius is going to take more space up on the device, and it's giving me a little estimation down here of how long and how big it's going to be. I'm going to download the imagery. So now the maps have downloaded. We can go take a look at them. View map, and you can see there, those are the satellite images. It's overlaid some of my information, my navigation information on there. And if you want to turn this off, what I can do is map setup, configure maps, and then I have all the maps in here. I've loaded free OpenStreetMaps on here as well. I'll talk about that in a second, but I can just turn this off. And now when I go back, it'll show me the regular map. So that's bird's eye and how to turn it off or how to download it if you need it.
So the last low I'm going to talk about is the weather or lack of weather. Now, if you're familiar with other InReach devices, you can get satellite weather reports. It's like a text message. You can request weather for the location you're at or another location. It'll send you a nice forecast hourly, and then out a few days, and you can get a premium forecast, which gives you more detailed view. That's available on all the InReach devices except the 66i. Now, when you go to the website, you'll see it shows you a picture of a nice weather map. It looks like, or the way they word it, it kind of, if you don't read it very carefully, makes you infer that you can get Doppler radar or graphical readouts of the weather on this device using InReach, and you cannot. You can do that with a cell phone connection, but if you have a cell phone connection, you can also just have a regular weather app like Dark Sky or Windy and get a even better visualization. You don't need it on here. What Garmin is doing is they're updating the firmware on this to get weather reports through InReach. I would suspect that it will be the same as a regular InReach weather report that you can get on InReach Explorer or InReach Mini. If you want to see those, look at my videos for the Mini or the Explorer, and I'll show you how it lays out. They have it. So weather, I don't know why you would ship this without InReach weather, but they did. And it's disappointing, especially if you didn't read the fine print and thought you were going to get some kind of cool visualization on the weather. All right, that might have seemed like a lot of lows, but there are a lot of highs too. So first off, the high is that this is a rugged GPS. So while it might not be able to show maps or like level of detail like a smartphone would, you can't pinch and zoom on this. This is built for the outdoors. There's a mil spec, there's IPX7, you can go underwater. I've really thrashed this thing over the last few months. I've had it everywhere, in the desert, in the mountains. I've dropped it, I've sat on it, it's been wet, it's been everything. It's had snow on it in the Sierras. It works. It's durable, it's built for the outdoors. Now you can get a rugged case for a smartphone if you're thinking about using a smartphone, but it can still break. Smartphone batteries aren't built for the outdoors. This has, I'll talk about in a second, a longer battery life, but this is something built for the outdoors, to use in the outdoors, to navigate specifically. So that's a high. It does that well. It fits nicely in your hands like this. There's a nice rubber band around it, and everything about it works well in the outdoors. So let me show you a little bit about how it works and how it's set up to fit in your hand and navigate well. First off, you can see it's built to fit in your hand. It fits nicely ergonomically into your hands. Your thumb can come across and reach all the buttons. It's easy to hold and use. It also has this rubberized band around the outside, which make it easy to grip, especially if it's wet or the conditions are a little adverse. Now, on the top here, we'll start here. We have power button, antenna. There's a small LED there, and if you have this clipped to your belts, this will give you some status on your InReach messages, whether they're going out or not, or whether you have a message waiting for you. On the side here, under this cover, is the micro SD card. On this side, you have your SOS button under a cover so you don't accidentally hit it or squeeze it.
On the back, you have the standard Garmin spine that lets you put the carabiner clip, which comes with the unit on there, or any other aftermarket clips like a belt clip or a backpack clip you can put on here. There's also a lanyard attachment point. And on the front, you have the big screen and you have the buttons. Now, the screen is great. The screen is easily viewable in daylight, all kinds of conditions, and it's nice, crisp, clear, and bright. One thing about the screen is that it's plastic, so you're going to want to buy a cheap screen protector on Amazon. I have the link on the article on my website, HikingGuy.com, where you can get that. Another highlight are the buttons. Now, the buttons are they're far enough apart that you can hit this with gloves and you'll be okay. They also make a small clicking sound and have some haptic feedback, so you can feel that you've pressed it in. And they work really well, especially if you're tired. You've used this for a while and you're just kind of on autopilot. It's real easy to navigate around here. In terms of what the buttons do, plus and minus will zoom you in and out. It's kind of obvious. Finds will bring you up to the list of POIs and waypoints where you can navigate to a destination or a series of destinations. Mark will mark a waypoint. We'll talk more about that later. Quit backs you out of something. Enter brings you into something. Menu brings you into sort of a sub menu of a screen. So here I'm on the screen of waypoints. If I hit menu, I'll get options for this screen. And every screen has different options. You can also double click menu to get back to the menu, the main menu. And then page brings you through these quick links down here. So that's basically it. And then also you have the rocker keys, the arrow keys, so you can navigate around a map and investigate other points on the map if you'd like to. So that's it. Overall, I'd give it an A for physical design. It's also rugged and it's IPX7, so you can put it underwater. It's been tested to a mil-spec standard, so it can withstand explosions and humidity and mold and everything you need in the field. And I've thrashed this pretty hard, and it's keeps on ticking. So I can say this is a good, well-built unit for the outdoors.
The second high is that it might not have weather yet, but it does have all the other InReach functions. So you can have one tool to do your navigation and also send messages and communicate back and forth with the outside world, including SOS. The messages are integrated into the Garmin Explore ecosystem. So if you save a track on here and maybe you sent some messages from the track, you can actually go to the website and see where you sent those text messages, which is pretty neat. So InReach is a big plus on a navigation device. Other great thing about the 66i is that it is fast. I suspect there's a new chipset in here from the old 64. It's an upgrade, which is probably why they're having some firmware problems, but it's really, really fast. Everything from the boot up to calculating a route, navigating through here. The only time it really lags is if you are kind of scrolling around a map and doing like really drastic zooms and pans. It can kind of lag a little bit, but otherwise it is really fast. Even the satellite acquisition, it gets a GPX fix super, super quick. It doesn't use GLONASS, the Russian version of GPS, just Galileo, which is the European version of GPS. So, there's over 40 satellites orbiting the Earth, more to come that you can get a fix on. And I found this gets a fix super, super quick compared to all my other GPS devices. So it's a quick unit, up to date, insides that you can't really see. All right, let me show you how fast this thing boots up and gets some satellites. So we're just going to hold the power key down. It's going to go through its little boot up screens, and then we will get the main menu. Then we can check on how many satellites we've locked onto. Okay, let's go to the main menu. There's satellites. Look at that, I'm already onto a bunch of satellites and I have a GPX fix within
23, 22. Let's just sit for a second and see what the accuracy goes down to. I generally get between 6 and 12 feet of accuracy on this. And it all depends on, where I am and what the line of sight is in the sky. But you can see it's pretty good considering it's been on for not too long here.
Another high of this device is the battery. Now the battery works pretty much as advertised on the Garmin site, if not a little bit more. You can turn settings off, you can tweak power settings, and you can get more juice out of it. There's also an expedition mode where if you turn off live track and you just plot points every 30 minutes, it kind of puts it into a hibernation. I got upwards of 200 plus hours on this just in hibernation mode. And you can also use it with live track in hibernation mode. So battery is good. You can take this several days on a backpacking trip. It charges really easy, but unlike the other handhelds, it doesn't have removable AA batteries. It's an internal battery, but it charges with your standard micro USB, which you probably have 15 million of these cables lying around if you've bought any kind of phone or electronic equipment in the last few years. So you can charge it with anything. It doesn't come with a wall charger, but it does come with a cable. You can charge it easily with a USB charger. I usually just carry one in my pack just in case. It's pretty lightweight and it can charge just a few times. So battery is good on this. The InReach Explorer has a longer battery life, but if you tweak this, you could probably give it a run for its money if you tweak the settings on the 66i. So there's a few ways you can tweak the battery. If you go into setup, there's some normal things you can do. You can do battery save on the display, set the backlight timeout to a low time. You can tweak your recording settings to be least. You can do the same thing on live track. Now there's also this new thing called expedition mode, and you can have it never on there. You can have it automatically come on after 2 minutes, or you can be prompted whether you want to go into it when you boot up the device. Expedition mode will put the device in hibernation, so it'll turn everything off and it'll take a GPX fix every, I think, 30 minutes. And it can also work with live track, so you can do expedition mode with live track as well. I don't use it much, I just used it to test it, but it's there if you need it. There's some other tips on saving the battery too. If you go to the corresponding article on Hiking Guy, I have them all listed out so you can tweak your settings to maximize your battery. Another high on this is the fact that it interfaces with the Connect IQ store. Now, if you have a Phoenix watch or some of the other fitness devices, you're probably familiar with Connect IQ. If not, basically what it is a market where people can create apps for this, and you can load the apps on here. So let's say there's a data fields that you don't have on here that you'd like to bring in, or there's an app for Wikiloc, which is a hiking website where you can download tracks on here and sync it automatically. There's all kinds of ways to extend and customize this, and that will only get better with time. Now, overall, the quality of the apps is so-so. Don't expect like a Google Play Store or iTunes Store, but it is neat that you can extend it and customize it however you need to with these third-party apps. The other high point of this are the preloaded topo maps. Now, I was never a big fan of Garmin Topo Active maps, and in the past they were pretty weak. They only had really major trails or Forest Service roads on them, but you can tell they've been working on it. They actually draw from the OpenStreetMap project, which is another set of maps that you can use, and there's a lot more trails on there than there were before. So that's a good thing, especially since if this is your only navigation device and you're out in the field and you need to figure out, okay, well, what's my quickest way out of here? Maybe there's a forest fire, you just want to get home. This has trails on it now. It didn't have trails before. Now you can also load OpenStreetMaps onto here, which are free, and I have a whole article on HikingGuy.com where you can get the free maps and load them on there. You can use both of those on here all the time. The Garmin maps and the trails in the Garmin maps are routable, so it'll route you on the trails when you navigate, which is a very cool thing. The level of detail is great. There's a ton of points of interest, POIs, on here, and you can actually load other POIs onto here too. So if you've hit the limit for the number of waypoints you can have, you can load a POI file on here and have as many as you want. So these are all really powerful, aspects of a navigation tool if you need to navigate in the backcountry. So topo active maps, much better than they were. Now, one note, they don't have all of the trails that OpenStreetMaps have, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I've seen trails listed on OpenStreetMaps that were nothing more than like animal runs. So, you don't want to get routed on an animal run. Maybe you do, but generally you don't want to if you're just trying to plan a hike or something. So they have a good level of detail, just enough to have all the major trails, but not some of the ones that might be a little sketchier.
So the map coverage varies, but you can see here, this is in San Bernardino National Forest. There's a decent amount of detail here on the Garmin Topo Active Map, which I'm looking at through the Basecamp program. And I'll show you Basecamp in a little bit. But you can see I've got lots of trails here. I've got peaks. And if I compare it to a plain old OpenStreetMap, you can see the look is different, but the trails are the same. I can actually tweak the detail on this. And we get other things on here. You get more contours. This is the free OpenStreetMap, which you can also load onto the device. And if you go to HikingGuy.com and you search for free Garmin maps, or free maps for your Garmin, either one of those things, you will learn how to get free maps, which you can load onto the 66i. But here, once again, this is the OpenStreetMap, and here is the Topo Active Map. So here's some trails in San Bernardino Forest. You can see a decent level of trails on there. We've got some peaks. Some of these trails are minor, some of them are bigger than others, but you have all of that information on here, all these contour lines. It's really a decent map. You can also search through all of these different points of interest, so there's all different types that that you can dig into: cities, campgrounds, geographic points. There's a ton in here that's good, and it's helpful, especially if you're in the field and you're navigating on the fly. So the last high on the 66i, that's a rhyme, is the ability to customize it. So there's a few ways you can customize it. There's different profiles. So there's profiles for hiking, hunting, different things. And for each profile, you can change the menu order. You can change the data screens that you see. You can create new, basically pages of icons. So it's really powerful. Once you know what you use all the time, you can put those icons at the top. You can make it easy for you to get to what you need quickly. A lot of smartphone applications, you can't do that, right? You're just looking at an app. It's got a line on there. You follow the line. It might have some recording where it has speed and stuff like that, but you can't get really detailed like you can on this. So in that respect, this is really, really good, especially if you use it maybe professionally, or if you're a power user or a hiking geek. You can really kind of tweak this to be the best it can be for you. All right, let's talk about navigation. Now, navigation is where this shines. Unlike the InReach Explorer, which kind of have some basic navigation information or tools on it, this is a full-fledged navigation tool. You can, find points wherever in your vicinity and create routes on trails, roads, whatever, and navigate to it. And this will point you in the right direction. For me personally, I usually plan my hikes beforehand, so I already know where I'm going and have an idea of the trails I'm going on. I can use this as a cross-reference, but if I needed to sort of plan on the fly, let's say I'm out in the field, somebody gets hurt, I need to route us to a hospital, I can do it on here on the fly. Or if I want to change my route because of weather or whatever it might be, I can do all of that on here. So let's get into it. Let's start off with waypoints. Now, waypoints are a pretty basic concept. If you're not familiar with it, it's just a GPS position, a latitude and a longitude, point on the map that says something is here. Now, you can create waypoints yourself. There's also a full database of what they call points of interest, or POIs, in here, which are like waypoints. They have everything from restaurants, hospitals, geographic features, campgrounds.
Just about everything you could imagine is in here, and that gets updated periodically too. So when you update your device, those points of interest will get updated on here. So let's look how to set, let's take a look at how to set them up and use them. Okay, so I'm at the trailhead, and let's leave a waypoint marker so we can find our way back here. Now all we have to do is turn the power back on and go to this button that says mark right here. So let's hit mark, and boom, I've automatically got a screen that lets me enter a waypoint. I can change the name, I can change the icon, I can add notes, I can tweak the location, do other things, but let's go ahead and save it. And now it should show up in our waypoint manager. There it is, 0009, and we can click on it, we can look at it on the map, and all that fun stuff. So one of the other cool features on the 66i is waypoint averaging, and what that does is it gives you a more precise position for your waypoint. So we just created this trailhead one. You can see how far we are from it, and essentially what this will do is it'll collect a number of readings here, and then it will average them. So we're at the point where the waypoint is. It is going through and creating or getting multiple GPS fixes and creating a more accurate position here by averaging them. We could let this go, but you get the idea. And if you really want to do this well, it recommends you do it over 90-minute periods, and you do different conditions. But if you just want a really accurate waypoint, maybe for the trailhead, this is a good way to do it. We can also pan around the map to drop a waypoint. So you just use the arrow keys here and move your arrow, your cursor around, and we can drop a waypoint wherever. Here's a trail, so I go there and I just hit the mark button, and there I get the familiar waypoint information. Call this 1, and there it is. It's on the map, and I can navigate to it. I can do whatever I need to with it as a geographic reference. So the next concept is something called a route. Now a route is basically a turn-by-turn direction from point A to point B, and you can have as many points in between as you want, and you can do that all dynamically on the 66i. You don't need to do it on a computer beforehand and bring it in here. You can do that, and I'll show you that in 1 second, but you can also do it on the fly on the device, which is very powerful. So let's take a look. Okay, so creating a route on the 66i is pretty easy. You just go to Route Planner, create route, and then you just select either POIs or you select waypoint. So we could pick a waypoint if we want. Let's look at all of our POIs here. Let's go to the Learning Center, use, and then let's add another stop at somewhere farther. And let's go to some toilets after that. Use, and now we're good. And now we can just go back. There it is, Route 1. View on the map, go. What do we want to do? Let's minimize our distance. And now it is giving us a route. So it's telling us to hike up here, continue to this junction, and then we're going to make a turn, and it will route us to those places. So very, very cool on the fly navigation. There, we just got to notice that the trail will be making a left-hand turn up here, which it does, and that will get us on the way to the Learning Center and the toilets. So that's how routes work on the fly on the 66i. Routing works with POIs and waypoints that you've loaded before, but also ones that you've generated on the device. So we created that waypoint in the beginning for the trail start. There it is. Let's hit go. And it is routing us back to the trailhead that we started on. So pretty cool. If you're dropping waypoints and keeping track of places and using this as a navigation tool, it's very powerful for on-the-fly calculations in the field and navigation in the field. The other concept to kind of wrap your mind around on the unit is your activities and tracks. Now, an activity is something you start and stop just like you would like a regular trip computer or odometer. or activity on a Garmin Fenix watch. When you start your hike or your adventure, you just press start. When you're done, you press stop, and then you have it saved in your saved activities. Now, a saved activity or recorded activity is not necessarily a track. It's technically a track, but if you wanted to save it as a GPX file, as a track file, you actually have to convert it to a track on the device.
Okay, so let's start a track. So you can see here recording controls. We do this, it's easy enough. Start, save, discard. So we'll start, and then we can start walking, and this will record our current track as an activity. So let's walk for a while, then take a look at it. So when you finish your hike, you just go back to recording controls, save, and now it is saving your activity. If you'd like to see it again, you just go to recorded activities, and there it is. And if you'd like to share it with somebody else or make it a track, you can just hit menu and then do save as track, and then it will be in your track manager right here. So pretty cool. That's how recording works and how tracks are saved. And from here you can actually sync it back to Garmin Explore, or you can even do something kind of funky. If there's another InReach user, you can do this thing called share wirelessly, and you can send anything that you've recorded on the device to other people. So pretty cool.
So when I do a hike, I actually don't do the routing on the fly on here, although I could if I was in a pinch, if I was just somewhere and I was like, I want to do a hike, I could do that. But most of the time, I know the hike that I'm going to do before I actually hit the trail. I've looked at paper maps, I've planned it out, I've looked at the conditions. So what I do is I pre-plan the hike, I create the routes or the tracks online first, and then I transfer them to the device and I use them in the field on the device. So let me show you how I do that. And one disclaimer, there's a lot of different workflows here and a lot of ways you could probably do this. This is the way that works for me. If you don't have a workflow, give it a try. You can probably evolve it into something that's a little more customized for you, but let's take a look.
So let's start out on the Garmin Explore website. This is where they want you to basically create your routes and waypoints and all that fun stuff and sync it to your device. In fact, it's the only place you can sync it to your device from, aside from the app. The problem is the tool set here is not that great. Here's the maps. These are the topo maps. I can't even see trails there, but if we go to OpenStreetMaps, boom, there are some trails. The other weird thing is when you zoom in too much, it'll bring you to a satellite photo. That's fine. But if you want to create a route, it doesn't snap to the trails. So you can see there's a bunch of trails here. If I want to go here to here, it's just going to give me a straight line, and that's not that useful. But what you can do is you can go into other programs, create different routes, and bring them into here, and then bring them to your device. So let's try that. Okay, so I'm on a website called topo.com, which is one of my favorite planning tools, this and Gaia GPS. And if you go to my gear page on HikingGuy.com, I will have links to these websites. But you can see here there's a lot more detail to the area that we were just looking at on Explore. Not only that, I can select from a number of different map layers here and get different basically views of the same area with different maps. I can overlay maps on top of other maps. So one of the ones I like is the weekly high-res satellite photo, which I can do and tweak the overlay. I use this when I'm checking for snow. There's no snow in this area. We can overlay wind and weather information. So very powerful tool. And I could do a whole video on this, and maybe I will at some point. But for right now, let's create a route here and export it to a GPX file. So let's go line. Let's start in the parking lot here. And let's go here. And let's go here. Okay, we'll call this Cal Topo Test Route. We'll save it. And so let's add a waypoint as well, as long as we're here. There it is. Let's put it over there. And we'll call it secret spot. And then all we have to do from here is export, download GPX file. It's asking us if we want to include all of the information we've created. Let's say yes. And now let's go back to the Garmin Explorer website, import it, and then sync it to the device. Okay, I'm back on the Garmin Explorer page, and you can see we're looking at the same area again. This is the map share view, or sorry, the OpenStreetMap view. It's pretty decent. If I go to their topo maps, it's meh. But again, that varies. So let's go ahead and import. And it's asking us if we want to import that as a track or as a route. Let's go route, because that way we can have turn-by-turn guidance. And then it's asking us if we want to put this into a collection or which collection we want to put it in. Collections are relatively new. If you have an old InReach, this might be different. It's basically a folder, so you don't have to sync every single track and waypoint to your device. So you can selectively choose where to file things and also which folders or collections to sync to the 66i. So let's put this in new hikes. Let's drag this in here. And there we go. One route, one waypoint, import. And there, it did that weird zoom again. But let's zoom out. And this looks familiar. So there's our route and there's our waypoint, secret spot. And if you look on the side, we can go to route. There it is. Again, I don't know why I can't. Oh, there it is. Routes, waypoints. Maybe go to refresh. Again, I told you the site wasn't the slickest. There it is, CalTopo test. I'm guessing this will be improving as time goes on, but for now, it's just a middleman. So now that we know we have these in the Garmin Explorer ecosystem, we'll sync them to our phone, and then we'll sync them to the device. So let's do that. Okay, now I'm in the Garmin Explorer mobile app, and I'm going to sync that with my account on the website. And now we're going to go to the devices page, find the 66i, and sync the information we just downloaded to the device. And you can see it on the bottom there, going via Bluetooth to the 66i. Okay, here we are at the trailhead. Let's find, there's the trailhead. Let's find the route. Let's go to Route Planner. There's CalTopo test. We can edit it. We can do some different things here. We can reverse it, but let's view it on the map. There it is. Looks like we're in the right place. So let's hit go. Whatever. Minimize time. It's calculating, and now it is telling us to walk here. And we are on the route. You can see we're on the line here, and we basically follow the line. Let's see what it says when we come up to the next junction. All right, it's telling us we're coming up to a point here. You can see that there, but it's telling us to go straight through this junction, so that's helpful. So we'll keep going straight through the junction. All right, so it's popped on again. It's telling us that there's an intersection up there which we need to turn on, and we should turn. It's giving us a little bit of warning, 200 feet. So let's keep going, see what happens. All right, so there's our warning for the turn. Here's the turn right there. Very easy to figure out. And we're gonna make the turn, and it's gonna confirm that we're in the right place. Turn this on again, and you can see here, we're just following the line. If I zoom in a little bit, I can see in detail, yes, I am in fact in the right place. All right, so it's telling me now that at 200 feet or so, I'm gonna get to my last point on the trip, which is right up there, which is the end of the route that we planned. So that's how routes work. Pretty straightforward. Again, it's a lot like like a car navigation guidance. It'll tell you when to turn, when not to turn, and you know, what's around you on the map. And you can also see the map's really nice and readable here. It's in the daylight, direct sun here, and you can see it pretty easy. There's a huge heron. Anyway. Now, another common scenario when navigating is to get a GPX file, whether you're downloading it from a website or creating it yourself, but having a track that maybe somebody did before, again, or you've created yourself, but you want to follow that track. So not necessarily a route where it's saying, you know, make a left, make a right, but essentially a line on a map that you want to stay on. So I have a track that's already created. You can just assume I downloaded it from a website or something similar to that. Let's bring it in here, and we'll see what it's like to navigate with a track here. All right, so there's the track. It brought it in. Now let's sync it to the phone and the device. So here's our track test that we created. And there it is in a map. And I'm just going to hit go. And what this does is it just puts that track on the map here as a purple line. And I can just hike and make sure I am on the purple line. And if I come to a junction, because it says the map's on board, I can look and see which way the line goes, which trail the map, which trail the line is on, and use that as my navigation sort of decision-making information. So that's handy. If you're going to be hiking and there's a lot of twists and turns and you want the notifications, the routes are probably more handy. If you've already planned and you kind of know where you're going, but just want that extra assurance if you come to a junction and you're not quite sure, or there's a trail that maybe looks like it's petered out and you don't know if you're on the right trail or not, this is really handy. You can just look at your position on the map relative to the GPX track. One other navigation tool you have is Sight and Go, which basically gives you a compass reading. So there's the 3-axis electronic compass. We can lock direction, and then we can either set a course in that direction, so we can always bear, you know, 293 degrees, or we can project a waypoint, whatever. So another way that you can plan your navigation and transfer points and tracks and all that fun stuff to the 66i is through the Garmin Basecamp program. Now, Basecamp is a desktop app for Mac and Windows. It is no longer supported by Garmin, but it does work and you can still download it from their website. And it's really a great product. I'm kind of disappointed that Garmin is discontinuing this. They're trying to get people to move to Explore, and my guess is that they're trying to get the functionality that you have in here into the Explore website, but Explore is not quite there yet. So this is here. Now you need to plug your GPSMAP 66i into the computer in order to access the maps. But when you do access the maps, you can see I have the GPS right up here. It's got a bunch of different things that I've already loaded in there, and it has the maps. So we're looking at the maps right here. So let's not look at what's in there now, but let's just look at the maps. And let's say I want to create a route. There's a track, here's a route. We can create a route almost the same way we did before. And let's go up to here. It will bring us on the trails, which is pretty cool. We can also, and there's a name to it, we can call this Basecamp test. Let's maybe rename it. Here we go. Auto name. Thank you, auto name. Basecamp route. And then also we can drop waypoints. We can create tracks. Here's a waypoint. Whatever. Hiding spots. Now that's on there, you can see I have them down here. And if I want to bring them on the device, it's really simple. I just select them and I hit this button that lets me transfer it, and I can choose what I'd like to transfer. And I just hit send and it goes to the device. And it's as easy as that. So Basecamp, another option if you want to pre-plan your navigation and send it to the GPSMAP 66i. So now it's going to navigate us in a straight line on this course. So that's sight and go. Pretty helpful if you are, in the back country and you don't have routable trails.
So let's talk about the InReach functionality. Now, one thing to note is that you can use this without activating InReach. So if you want to just have a good navigation device and maybe need InReach in the future, you can buy this and use it. You can't do that on the InReach Explorer. You need to have an activation to use that. But on 66i, you can use all the functions aside from InReach without an InReach subscription. There's some setup, and like I mentioned earlier, go to the website. I have like a very granular list of steps on how to set this up and get it all running. There can be some hiccups if you don't do some things that are not so obvious, like certain times to restart it. But go to the website, I have that. But otherwise, let's take a look at the InReach setup first and how you get your messages in and get them onto the device, and then we'll look at actually sending and receiving texts and live track on here. So let's go. If you do want to use InReach, you need a subscription. There's varying levels of plans, and there's also team plans. If you go to HikingGuy.com to the corresponding article, I have a list, a link to the list of subscription options on the Garmin site. There's also annual contracts, and you can go month to month and then turn it off for a portion of the year if you don't need it. So there's a lot of flexibility in this. And even on the lowest plan, you can send unlimited preset messages, which is a handy tool to have. And you also have unlimited SOS. Hopefully you don't have to use that, but you can use it, all part of the lowest subscription package. So check out the subscriptions before you actually activate the device. So the InReach uses the Iridium satellite network to send and receive text messages. The Iridium satellite network has 100% global coverage. I actually had a reader who bought a Mini based on my review, brought it to Antarctica, and it worked there. He sent me the screen capture, so very cool. Confirmed, actually works in Antarctica. Tongue twister. But that's the deal with Iridium. Now, in real life, performance varies, right? I've been with this on top of Half Dome, whatever, thousands of feet in the sky, clear line of sight, and messages failed to go through. I've also been in a hotel room bathroom, and the message goes through right away. In general, messages go through in about 2 or 3 minutes, but it depends. Now, if a message doesn't go through, it'll stop trying after a while, and it'll prompt you and see whether you want to continue to send it or not, or stop, which is a good thing because continually trying to send drains the battery down. So that's a good thing, but it varies. And in terms of this versus the other InReach units, it's about the same. The GPS is faster on this, but the InReach is about the same as the other ones. It's hit or miss. And again, it generally is reliable for me and works. Sometimes it doesn't, but say 90% of the time, if not more, it works fine.
You set up your preset and quick text messages here in Garmin Explore on the website, and then you sync it to your app, and then you sync it to the unit. Again, a little clunky. This is what I do. You can have 3 presets. The message is locked in and the recipients are locked in, but otherwise, you can choose whatever you want. On the quick text messages, you can add a bunch of them. You can do whatever you want. I'm sick. Save. And now when I sync that will go back to my unit. The other thing to note is your contacts will sync. So if we go here to contacts, you can see all of the contacts that I have here, and they will sync back and forth to the app and also to the device. Now, one of the things on the 66i is that you can add a contact and then you can sync it back to the phone, and it'll actually sync back here, which is handy if you meet somebody in the field. But that's how contacts and messages work in the InReach world. All right, so let's send a preset message. Now your messaging is all under the messages menu, send preset. There it is. I'm going to send this to myself, and I've also set up notifications on here for my smartphone, so you can get smartphone notifications when you get a text message. So We can see how long it takes to send this preset. There we go. We just sent it. So let's see how long it takes before I get a notification on here from my phone that I've received the message. Now you can also send a regular message that's not a preset, and you can type it or send quick texts. Let's just do quick text to start. Select the contacts. You can post it to your social or send it to a number. We'll send it to me. All right, so I just got that auditory notification that the message sent. So let's see how long it takes to get to the phone. Come back on here. There it is. So that was pretty quick. I just got a text message that we just sent. So now I can send one to myself here. One neat thing too, when you're selecting recipients, you can see it's a phone number, which is SMS, or email, or I can send it to an InReach device. So pretty powerful if you want to send it back. So I selected my recipient. Now I'm going to go done. And now I have this quick text here where I can say I'm sick, and I can fire that off. And that goes out as well. Now the last one is the freeform message. So let me show you that. New message, type message. We'll send it to me again. Look at that. There, I just got that satellite message I just sent that I'm sick. Let's send it to me again. And I'll show you what it's like to type. It's not the slickest to type on here, but it does work. Message. So it has predictive words that come up, which is great. So you can kind of go quick that way. And then the way you send it's the same as you did before. Send the message, and boom, there it goes. So that's messaging. You saw how fast it was. You can also receive messages on here. So let me reply to one of these now, and we'll see what it looks like to get a text message on your InReach. That was the message I just sent. So pretty zippy here. All right, I just sent a message from my phone to the InReach device. So let's see if we get it. So we can check it under InReach Utilities. Let's check the mailbox. All right, I just got a message. There's the LED. Checked for mail. And now if I go, let's go back to the main Garmin page. You can see I have a little icon there. I also have an icon up here. And here is the message that I sent back from that last message. So it took a little bit longer to get this. And who knows where that bottleneck is, whether it's in the satellites, whether it's on the ground. I don't know, but it does work eventually. So sending text messages back and forth is nice, but really what I have this for in terms of the Iridium is for the SOS functionality. Now, unlike a PLB, which uses a government network, this uses the Iridium network and a company called GEOS. And GEOS is a private company, but they specialize in coordinating rescues and evacuations around the world. And GEOS works not only with the InReach devices, but with a host of whole other organizations, entities, and they interface with all different government agencies in order to coordinate a rescue. And the way it works in a nutshell is that you hit the SOS button on here. It will send a text message with your GPS position to GEOS. GEOS has multilingual staff on hand. They will text you back and ask you the nature of your emergency. You text them back and describe what's going on, and essentially have a text conversation with them where you describe what the problem is, and they will help you figure out what the best course of action is. You're not always just going to get a helicopter flying in and scooping you up and taking you out of there.
You might have a team of people who bring a basket up and carry you out. They might ask you to evacuate yourself. It's not just for injuries. It's also, if you get lost and you're stuck in the woods overnight and you can't get out, you use this. If you think there's a forest fire around you and you need to evacuate, you use this. The general rule of thumb is if you're in danger of life or limb, then you trigger an SOS. But unlike a PLB, which is just a distress call, this is two-way. So if you are not sure, let's say you really hurt your ankle and you don't think you can hike out, but maybe you can have a two-way conversation with GEOS, and they can talk to emergency personnel, first responders, and come up with the best course of action for your condition. They might tell you to walk out, or if you hit your head, and you're worried that you might have concussion or something like that, they're going to walk you through whatever needs to be done to address the situation. And simply you cancel the SOS when you're done, and that's how it works. Maybe you're rescued, maybe you self-evacuate, but that's how the SOS functionality works with this. There's been thousands of rescues with InReach, and it's relatively new technology, so very cool. I've never had to use it for myself, but I have called GEOS for somebody else that I've encountered on the trail. So it's helpful in that sense. You might not have thought of it that way, but you can help people that way. They do also have optional insurance that you can opt into, so evacuation insurance. You don't always have to pay for an evacuation. Sometimes you do. It's a bit of a gray area, but for under $20 a year, you can get insurance. You can also get medical evacuation to your home hospital as well, which is a little more money. So you have options, and it's a handy piece of functionality to have on your 66i when you're in the backcountry. No matter how experienced you are, accidents always happen. Not always, but they can always happen. So having that is well worth the price of this and the subscription for me. Another feature of InReach is Live Track. Now, Live Track allows you to send periodic, basically location fixes to a map page that you have online where friends and family or the public can go and look at it and see where you are. So essentially they're following a little line as you go on your hike or trip, whatever it might be. Now for that map share page, you can make it private, you can password protect it, you can make it public. There's a lot of different options on what data gets displayed there. But it's a pretty straightforward concept, and it's a nice one if you have loved ones at home who are worried about you or want to follow your progress because you're on some kind of exciting adventure.
Okay, Live Track's pretty easy. You just go here to Live Track and you hit Start Live Track. But one thing to note is there's a send interval, and the send interval tells the unit how many times to broadcast your position to the satellites. And you can change that to save battery life or to reduce costs. And you just go to Live Track. You want to turn off auto track usually, otherwise it'll come on automatically when you power the unit on. But you can go to this moving interval and change it all the way up to 4 hours, but we'll keep it at 10 minutes. You can go down to 2 minutes on the top plan if you need to, but it's a little excessive. But we'll go to Live Track and we'll start Live Track, and there you can see our interval is 10, and it gives us our moving time and a timer. Two other things to note: that little up arrow means that it's broadcasting our position to the satellites, and this little I info, that's the Live Track icon, is in the menu bar. So if I go to other screens here, I will always see that it is up. Like I'll go to the recording screen, I can still see this icon, which tells me that I have Live Track on, which is helpful. So let's walk around and we'll see what it looks like on the map. One other thing to note, if you're doing Live Track, on the icon for Live Track, there's a little green badge that shows up that tells you that Live Track is on. Then when you're finished your hike, you just go to Live Track, stop Live Track, end, yes. It's as easy as that. Now let's take a look at it on the map. A different Live Track. This is one that's a little bit longer from the Grand Canyon. And here you can see my path. And these points are the location pings that went up. Now you might notice that it doesn't follow the trail exactly, and that's because these are going up every 10 minutes. Now actually on the unit, it's recording much more than that, and if you look at a track on the unit, you'll see that it follows the trail. But these are pings that go up every 10 minutes, and ideally they should be always at a point on the trail, and so far so good. but I just want to show you an anomaly here. Here, when I'm climbing back up Bright Angel Trail to the rim of the Grand Canyon, you can see I'm right next to the canyon wall, so I don't have a GPS fix, and this has horrible accuracy here. I didn't actually climb the wall and fall back down. So if you're in a canyon, the GPS accuracy won't be that good, but it was still able to actually broadcast an InReach point, which is interesting. But here you can see the points are back on the trail all the way back to here. So that's what a MapShare page looks like, and pretty straightforward in terms of following somebody's progress along a track.
Two neat features you can enable on your MapShare page are location pings and messages, and you can turn them off or you can have them on. If you have them on, it lets basically people on the page interact with you. So if you have location ping on, you hit a button and on the website, and it will ping your unit, and your unit will ping back where it is. So if it's maybe you're not doing a live track and somebody just wants to know where you are, they can ping your device at any time. You can also send messages from the website to the unit, text messages. So that's a powerful tool. And again, you can also just respond to a text message that you get from the InReach, and it will come back to the InReach. So some final thoughts. Would I recommend this? Yes. I'd say if you can afford this and you want an InReach, go for this model. I loved my InReach Mini, but I use this now because it has all the navigation on board. I use this as my backup and as my primary InReach device. I use paper maps and my smartphone app more than I use this, but I have this in case I need it, in case I need a backup. It's rugged. I don't have to worry about it, and it's built for the outdoors. Now, if you're on a budget or you don't want to spend $600, I'd say go to the website, check out some of the comparisons. The InReach Explorer might be better for you, or even a combination of a smartphone and a Mini. I do see this getting better all the time. Every release of new firmware, it gets more stable. There's more, functionality added. Points are addressed. So over time, in the long run, I think this is a good buy. It is the top of the line, and it is kind of the only horse in the game or in the race if you need an InReach navigation device. And even just for a navigation device, this is the top of the line. Again, there's some little bugs. They're getting worked out, but this is built for the outdoors, to navigate in the outdoors. And if you need that, this is your move. So ask me any questions you'd like in the comments. I will do my best to answer all of them. I have a link to the full companion article on HikingGuy.com in the description, so please visit that too. There's more information on the article than there is in here, and I'm going to update that when there's a weather update, so you'll be able to see how the weather works and when that all happens. And if you've enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, if you could do me a huge favor and click that little thumbs up button, that will help other people find the video and hopefully get this if they need it and not waste their money if they don't. And I do other reviews of gear that I use. I only recommend things that I actually use. And if you go to HikingGuy.com, you can subscribe to my newsletter. I have Facebook, all that standard stuff. So if you want to stay in touch, you can. But anyway, I'll see you out on the trails, and let me know how your 66i is working if you've gotten it.